Let's head to Egypt now. The country failed to attract a single offer at its state grain tender, forcing it to cancel its third consecutive wheat purchase tender. Now, this comes amid an ongoing standoff with suppliers over import policies. The country's state grain buyer, the GASC, was tapping into global markets after Egypt reinstated a controversial zero-tolerance policy towards the ergot fungus. Now, Egypt depends on a steady stream of massive wheat shipments in order to run its bread subsidy program, which of course feeds tens of millions of its citizens. The country may suffer if the zero ergot policy continues to block access to global grains. 8 shipments yet to arrive in Egypt were purchased under the 0.05% rule, but are now being scrutinized under the stricter zero tolerance regulation. Well, let's get an update on the ongoing standoff in Egypt. Yasser Hakim now joins us in Cairo. Yasser, now Egypt's Prime Minister, we know, held an urgent meeting with members of the cabinet today to discuss the wheat shipments affected. Any updates so far? Could we see the government possibly backtracking on this zero tolerance policy towards, of course, the ergot fungus?
Well, Uche, until now, there's no backtracking. The government is still insisting on the zero tolerance concerning the wheat. And what we know as well is that during the meeting, a delegation will be formed to go and visit Russia to try to discuss this issue with the Russian officials there, and also to discuss what Russia has been threatening to do, and that is to halt or suspend shipments of Egyptian agricultural products to exports to Russia in retaliation to the wheat issue. So until now, the government, there is a lot of conflict within the government itself, within the officials in the government. Some are for keeping the situation as it is, zero tolerance, and others are calling for 0.05 to return, of ergot to return as agreed, because that was the way it was signed with this percentage, and if Egypt does not take these shipments that have already been signed before, then it will have to pay fines for Russia, for Romania, for Ukraine. Romania already is calling for a fine of $500,000 for a shipment that has been refused last week. And maybe Russia would do the same. So Egypt wants to get this done before any steps for retaliation takes place.
Now, Yasser, we know, but Egypt does depend on these wheat shipments to run its bread subsidy program, which of course feeds more than 90 million Egyptians. The government says it can meet demand for now, but for how long can it sustain this policy, of course, if traders are refusing to sell right now?
Well, Egypt, there's every year what we call the local purchase season, and that's just ended last month. And that's when the local production is being bought by the government for consumption and for being stocked here in the country to be in the silos for the next few months. And what we know is that it will stay for 6 months. So Egypt has until, let's say, end of February, beginning of March, covered with wheat. But of course, it has to have agreements signed before then so that the shipments will start coming before the end of the stock in Egypt. So we're talking 6 months now.
Right, about 6 months. Now, we do know international standards allow up to about 0.05% of this ergot fungus. What is the view out there on Egypt's zero tolerance policy? And of course, how sustainable is it in the wheat market right now?
Well, the whole issue started when there was a corruption scandal, and it was discovered that a lot of shipments included 0.05 and even more than the 0.05 ergot, and they went through. At that time, Egypt accepted 0.05%. Because of this scandal, the government decided it's better, first of all, to stop, to clear zero tolerance. That would be better to avoid corruption. Also because 0.05 is fine, healthy-wise, for the normal consumption around the world. But Egyptians, they consume 3 times at least, 3 to 5 times the normal average consumption of a person in any other place in the world. So what experts are saying, or some experts are saying, the 0.05 would not have any effect on someone in the United States, in England, or in Kenya, but the 0.05 will have an effect in Egypt because the Egyptian would eat 5 times as much as a Kenyan, for example. So he will be affected more. The 0.05 will have a more effect on his health. And that's the fear factor here. And that's why Egypt is continuing on this path.
Quite interesting. Well, many thanks, Yasser, for those insights. Yasser Hakim joining us there in Cairo. Well,